back to Deborah's Glad Tidings. We left off on our story Monday night where Expedition Greg and his dog Sky were entering into these woods. And according to him, he said according to the ancestors, the woods were called the Forest of Misfortune. And he told his dog Sky that he didn't have a good feeling about these woods. So we're going to pick up tonight as they're proceeding into the woods, continuing their journey. As they continue their journey into the woods, Expedition Greg and his dog Sky, the fluffy Shih Tzu, found the path to be extremely overgrown with branches and quite confusing. There was another sign that was practically busted up. It had two broken cross pieces hanging from the wooden pole of the sign. One said "In Rachel's Place" and the other said "Mary's Place." In passing, Expedition Greg noticed Bird looking down at them from a tall tree. It was a strange looking bird, so Expedition Greg stared at it suspiciously. He kept his eyes on it as he continued walking. Bird made a funny sound that startled Sky, the fluffy Shih Tzu. "It's just a bird, Sky," said Expedition Greg, looking back. "Just because we're in a new surrounding doesn't mean it's where Big Animal's expedition is, which makes the animals ferocious, Sky," he said, as they pressed on. The moment he turned his back, Bird swooped down at Sky. Before Sky could make a fuss, Expedition Greg turned around and urged him on. "Come on, Sky. We've got to find a place to bunker down and make a campfire before it gets too dark. Right now, the only light we have is the Blure sunset." Sky, the fluffy Shih Tzu, was moving so fast after the encounter with Bird that he bumped into the back of Expedition Greg's foot. Expedition Greg had stopped dead in his tracks because he noticed something interesting up ahead. There was a pile of autumn-colored leaves sitting right in the middle of the pathway. He parted them slowly to see what was beneath them. Immediately, Bumble's butterfly and Bumbee Selby flew out of the pile of leaves. There was a circular clearing with a sign that said Shewanna's Creative Circle. The only thing Expedition Greg discovered was a circular clearing that led to a huge banyan tree in the center. The banyan tree was not like all the others made by Mother Nature. It was huge. There was grass all around it and moss hanging from every limb. The roots were covered with moss as well, and for some reason it had an extraordinary glow. It was the most impressive thing Expedition Greg had ever seen. "This looks like a tree from a horror movie I saw, Sky, where the tree sucks you in and you're lost in another part of the world forever." "I think this is what we were supposed to discover, Sky," said Expedition Greg, staring intently at the banyan tree. Sky, the fluffy Shih Tzu, just stood there looking back and forth between him and the tree, as if suggesting that he investigate further. Expedition Greg was so mesmerized by the appearance of the tree and its glow that he didn't notice it had two doors at its base. As he drew nearer, he saw them, and the glow was more like blinding lights. They were practically seamless and camouflaged really well into the banyan tree, as if expected to be hidden out of sight. There was no one else around either. There was no one else around, neither were there signs to tell them exactly where they were. He couldn't determine if this was Naomi May's way, Shewanna's Creative Circle, In Rachel's Place, or Mary's Place. Neither of the signs pointed in a particular direction that will make it clear to him. Expedition Greg yelled out, "Hello! Anybody home?" But he got no answer. "I guess we should just let ourselves in, Sky," he said. Just as he reached for the doorknob, an elderly woman with pink hair named Pam Money poked her head out from a window above and said, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." It was impossible to see the window until Pam Money opened it and peered down at him and Sky. It too was camouflaged even better than the door. Expedition Greg drew his hand back quickly and just stood there stuttering, not knowing what else to do. Who are you?" he asked. "I'm Pam Money, also known as Frugal Granny. You have found Shewanna's creative circle, and this is my sister Mary's place." "Why can't I come in, Miss Granny?" he asked. "Because you don't know which door to take. If you are not careful, you will choose the wrong door and be sucked into a vortex and end up somewhere out in the 7 seas. "I'm not afraid," said Expedition Greg. "I go on adventures out there all the time." "That's if you're a lucky young man," said Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny. Expedition Greg was super smiley and chuckled softly to himself at the irony of it all, careful as not to let her hear him. Frugal Granny's eyesight was sharper than a hawk. She could see Expedition Greg's dismissive, mocking snicker from all the way up high from the window. He says to the elderly woman, "So you are telling me one of these doors is the portal to the 7 seas or somewhere else?" "Don't believe me, son," she said. Expedition Greg laughed a little softer. "Go ahead and give it a try, if you don't believe me." Then there was no laughter at all. "Take your gamble that you will end up somewhere out on the 7 seas, if you please." "What kind of banyan tree is this anyways?" "It was some creative thinking," he said. "But this sounds like something from a fairy tale," he added. "Are you the creative mom who designed this banyan tree?" he asked. Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny, just shrugged her shoulders and said it was mind-crafted though, and then waited in silence. Expedition Greg stood there silently, waiting for some form of instruction from the elderly woman. Finally, the elderly woman with pink hair said to Expedition Greg, "You and your little friend are looking for something great, aren't you?" "Something extraordinary, my son, right?" she said. "That's not an easy adventure, dear," said Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny. Expedition Greg looked down at his dog Sky, the fluffy Shih Tzu, excitedly and was super smiling. All he could think about in that moment was Rad's adventure, risky and dangerous. Suddenly he got a hold of himself and said to the elderly woman, "Did Ola-Joe the crocheting sailor and her sidekick MrPickel Rick tell you I was coming and told you what we're looking for? Or was it Big Papa Yim or BajaWildman?" Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny with the pink hair, just chuckled again and then asked Expedition Greg if anyone had told him exactly what he was supposed to be looking for. He replied, "All I know is that it's supposed to be the greatest treasure in the world. That's what Ola-Joe the crocheting sailor and her sidekick MrPickel Rick told me." Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny, chuckled again and then said, "I'll never understand those treasure hunters and their lingo. Some of the stuff they say is so childish." She finally opened the door and stepped outside. Expedition Greg thought he could just relax now. But the minute he and his dog, Sky, the Shih Tzu, began approaching the elderly woman, she quickly retreated back into the tree and slammed the door shut abruptly behind her. Expedition Greg didn't know what to think or what to do with that. He was a little taken back by it, but quickly yelled, "Hey, Miss Money, wait!" Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny, had made her way back up to the small window in the banyan tree, stuck her head out, and acted as though this was their first meeting. She said, "Who goes there? And what is it that you want?" Not knowing what to think, Expedition Greg played right along. He said, "Excuse me, miss. My name is Expedition Greg, and this is my dog, Sky, the fluffy Shih Tzu. What a beautiful name your dog has. Was he named after the sky?" "No," Expedition Greg said with a smile, slightly annoyed by the question. "My name is Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny." "Did they name you because you have lots of riches but you don't spend a lot?" Expedition Greg asked sarcastically. "Did your parents tell you why they named you Expedition Greg?" she added. "Well, if you must know, that's what I chose to call myself. When I want something, I try it, buy it, make it, sell it. Since I get fabulous designs on a budget, I resell them for much more. I do smart shopping and cooking also, young man. I've got the billionaire mindset. So I am God's child. God loves me, so everything I make is God's girl creations. I have this huge empire." And then she asked him for change for $1. "Right," he said awkwardly, thinking to himself, "it's all hot air, and this is the stuff I need to write down in my Bubbles diary, because no one would ever believe me if I told them about this." She peeked her head out further and looked down on them, saying, "Expedition Greg is such an unusual name. Are you one of those psycho ghost trackers?" Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny, said with a serious look upon her face. Expedition Greg just ignored the question and said, "We have no idea which door to open," thinking to himself, who is she talking about? I'm not a average Joe PT. I'm no average Joe PT. Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny, said, "I know you don't, but if you are not careful, you would choose the wrong door and be sucked into a vortex and end up somewhere out in the 7 seas. It is the portal to other places, young man," she said. Expedition Greg couldn't believe they were having this conversation all over again. Trying not to entertain this conversation much longer, he asked, "Can you at least give us a hint as to which door to choose?" "A hint? I'm getting my life together at 50, and you have the nerve to ask for handouts." "What nerve, young man?" the elderly woman said as she slammed the window shut. "She asked if I am a psycho ghost tracker, but I think she's just plain psycho," Expedition Greg thought to himself while calling out her name, trying to convince her that he didn't mean to offend her. Expedition Greg was becoming discouraged and was about to leave when Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny, opened the window again. This time she was holding a piece of paper in her hand as she addressed Expedition Greg. Once again, she repeated herself. I know you don't know which door to take, young man, and if you are not careful, you will choose the wrong door and be sucked into a vortex and end up somewhere out in the 7 seas. Buffy, Paris, or worse. One of those doors is the portal, you know. Luckily for you, young man, she said to Expedition Greg, I just so happen to have a hint written down on this piece of paper. Expedition Greg interrupted Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny, and said, Is it a riddle that you got from Big Papa Yim? Of course not, Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny said. Don't be silly, young man. This isn't a gathering place for pirates. None of those people you named, Ola-Joe the crocheting sailor, and her sidekick, MrPickel Rick, nor Big Papa Yim ever made it this far. Actually, no one has ever made it through the portal. I was just asking, said Expedition Greg. Quiet, young man, said the elderly woman. Certainly, responded Expedition Greg sarcastically with frustration, thinking she's kind of cranky. As he was thinking, I don't know why I thought this was going to be a peaceful flow. This reminds me of Anna's Antics, and it's worse than having conversations with Dee Dee. Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny, cleared her throat and began to read aloud the riddle written down on the note, just like Papa Yim did. Don't stress, don't guess which door is right. Close your eyes and rely on that inner sight. Your intuition will tell you which door is right. Expedition Greg closed his eyes and thought really hard, trying to use his inner sight, whatever that meant. After a great deal of racking his brain, Expedition Greg was sure of only one thing, and that was that he needed to hear the riddle again. When he asked Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny, to repeat the riddle, she said, You didn't listen well. Hi, young man. Who are you? You don't know which door to choose. If you are not careful, you will choose the wrong door and lose. You will be sucked into a vortex and end up somewhere else, of course. Either out on the 7 seas or somewhere else much worse, of course. And then Pam Money, aka Frugal Granny, shut the window once again and messed up his Thursday vibes. All Expedition Greg could say was, Oh no, she didn't. Really, TT? She must be one of the McCrazies. He just looked at his dog and said, Sky, this is our life. That concludes our story tonight. All of the characters that were used in the story, featured in the story tonight, all of the YouTube characters that were featured in the story tonight, a couple of them were returned. Of course, you know, Expedition Greg is the main character, and his dog Sky, the fluffy Shih Tzu. So they are gonna be in the story throughout. So let's see who the other characters were in the story tonight. And we, of course, we have Ola-Joe the Crocheting Sailor and her sidekick, MrPickel Rick, who was also in previous chapters of the story. Okay, let's see. Trying to get back to the beginning. So we have Expedition Greg, Sky the Fluffy Shih Tzu, In Rachel's Place, Mary's Place, Bird, Big Animals Expedition, Blur Sunset, Bubbles Butterfly, Bumbee Selby, Shewanna's Creative Circle, Mother Nature, Blinding Lights, Nonie Mae's Way, Pam Money, Frugal Granny, The Portal, Creative Thinking, Creative Mom, I think I said Shewanna's Creative Circle, Mindcrafted, Rad's Adventure, Ola-Joe the Crocheting Sailor, MrPickel Rick, Big Poppa Yim, BajaWildman, Just Relax Now, Try It, Buy It, Make It, Sell It, Fabulous Designs on a Budget, Smart Shopping and Cooking, The Billionaire Mindset, God's Child, GodLovesMe, GodsGirl Creations, Huge Empire, Change for $1, It's All Hot Air, Bubbly's Diary, Psycho Ghost Trackers, Average Joe PT, I'm Getting My Life Together at 50, Buffy Paris, Gathering Place, Crankiee, Peaceful Flow, Anna's Antics, Conversations with D, Listen Well, Thursday Vibes, Oh No She Didn't, Really TT, McCrazies, and This Is Our Life. Those are the YouTubers featured in the story tonight. Always remember, until we meet again, may His peace be with you. Story time is every Monday, Wednesday, Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll see you at the next story time. Always remember, I have a will to live. Good night.